Keter-shemtov, the anthology of Sephardic Minhagim. We spoke yesterday about tefillin on Hol HaMoed, and Rabbi Gagin here expands in his commentary on the question of what happens when the Zohar is in disagreement with a certain practice or halakha that is mentioned in the Talmud. And this is an important question because though the Zohar is attributed to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who lived in the 2nd century, it was only revealed or exposed in Spain in the 14th century. So 1200 years at least passed without people being aware of what was written in the book. It was challenged by the authenticity of the Zohar, was challenged by great scholars, Hachamim like Rabbi Yaakov of Ahmeddin, the Abetz, and others. But assuming that this is how it is, there are 1200 years where no one knew what was written in the Zohar. And the halakha that is presented in the Zohar is different. So who do you follow? So he quotes here the Shelah, Rabbi Yeshayahu Levi Horvitz, who was Ashkenazi, but he immigrated to Israel and he followed in many things. He followed the Kabbalah. And he says, אנחנו יושבי ארץ ישראל, הנמשכים אחר קבלת הזוהר הקדוש, נוהגים להניח תפילין של יד מיושב. We who live in Eretz Israel, when we follow the teachings of the Zohar, we have the practice to put the tefillin shel yad while sitting. If you ever went to an Ashkenazi synagogue, some of the Ashkenazi synagogues, you'll see the people put tefillin while standing. And in many Sephardic synagogues, people do them right, you're standing. In many Sephardic synagogues, you'll see the people put the tefillin shel yad while sitting, then they get up to put the tefillin shel rosh, and then sit again to put the last portion on the palm, on the hand. This comes from the Kabbalah. This comes from the discussion in the Zohar that connects the tefillin shel rosh to a certain level, one of the olamot or one of the sfirot, one of the worlds, and the tefillin shel yad to another one, and therefore says this one should be done sitting, that one should be done standing. Not all Sephardim accepted that. Rabbi Yosef Messas writes about that. He says that the Moroccan minhag was not to do that in most places, and he says whatever you feel more comfortable with, you could do. There's no precedence or priority here, and sometimes it is very uncomfortable when you look at everybody getting up and down to put on tefillin. But to each his practice. But we should know that this minhag stems from the Kabbalah of the Zohar. והכנסת הגדולה כתב שבא תלמיד חכם בארץ הצבי, and now we have he quotes another statement by the Knesset הגדולה, Rabbi Haim Ovadia, who lived in Turkey, but his family originated from Spain. The family migrated from Spain, split between Turkey and Germany. In Turkey, they maintain the name Benvenisti, which means welcome, Benvenido, and in Germany, they adopted the name Epstein after the city of where they lived. And one of the famous rabbis of this family was Rabbi Michael Epstein, the author of Aruch HaShulchan, also wrote with great clarity. So anyway,
this was way before the Ari. This was.
No. The Ari is after the Gerush from Spain, but Knesset Gedola.
The period that you're talking about right now
is after the Ari.
It's after the Ari.
Yeah, after the Ari. So Knesset Gedola is about 100.
So the Ari students went up and down.
Ari, we don't know exactly what the Ari did, but we know that this is a teaching of Kabbalah. There's a book separately about Minhagei Ari, the customs of the Ari. So here's an interesting thing. There's a bracha included in Birkot HaShachar, in the daily blessings. Baruch Ata Hashem, hanoten la'yav koach. He who grants or gives strength to those who are weak or enervated. This is taken in turn from the Tanakh, from Yeshayahu. Noten la'yav koach ul'en onim otzma yarbeh. The Navi praises God, and he says how he gives us strength and energy. The problem with this bracha is that it's not mentioned in the Talmud. Nowhere in the Talmud, which was sealed or finally edited at around the 5th century, did not mention this bracha anywhere. And there is a tradition among the rabbis, in later halakhic literature, that you cannot invent or you cannot create a new barach, because all the barachot that we say were invented by people. They're not, none of the barachot that we say is mentioned in the Bible. They were all created by people, not invented, let's say, authored. So the rabbis say you cannot author a new baracha after the period of the Talmud. That's the end. They were the only ones who had the authority to write a baracha. So now you have this baracha, Noten la Ya'if Koach, and Maran Rabbi Yosef Karo in the Bet Yosef and in Shulchan Aruch says that since there's no trace to this baracha in the Talmud, we don't know where it came from. We don't say it. You're not allowed to say it. The Ari, the Kabbalistic teachings disagree with that and said that according to the Kabbalah, there's a reason for this blessing and that you have to say it. The truth is, so what is the truth? Is always subjective, but most probably what the origin of this beracha, when we look at manuscripts and sidurim, we see that the first time that it appears is after the Crusades, and only in Germany, and then it spreads to Europe. So it's obvious that the beracha was composed by a rabbi who lived in Germany after the Crusades, and it's an appropriate beracha because people were dispirited and hopeless after the massacres of the Crusades. The Jewish community was decimated. So he said, let's introduce into the daily brachot one that will give them hope. What is it? Hanoten la Ya'if Koach. You give us energy even when we are completely depleted and hopeless.
But I think even Al Netilat Yadayim is not because Al Netilat Yadayim in the Gemara is only applies to the Kohanim. No?
Right, but at least you have the bracha. It's called matbe'ah shel bracha. At least you have the formula. Right? Here, the formula doesn't exist. Yeah. It exists in only the three words, but not the bracha. So that's why the Ashkenazim stay with this bracha. That's why the Bach Rabbi Sirkis, who writes the commentary on parallel to the Bet Yosef of Yosef Karo, says, even though we have no source, we know that we have to say it. The Kabbalah added this element of, you don't know what the source is mystical. That's always a good excuse when you don't know the reason for something to say that mystical reason there. But here's the interesting thing. The Knesset Gdolah Rabbi Haim Ben writes, Ba Talmid Chacham Eretz Hatzvi, a scholar came from Israel, which is called Eretz Hatzvi, the desired land, to Turkey, and he attested to that Rabbi Yosef Karo changed his mind and retrieved his ruling, and he said you should say the bracha,
even though it's after the Talmud.
Even though it's after the Talmud, and that in itself is a problem that when you have someone like Rabbi Yosef Karo, who was very meticulous in his writings, and he made sure that whatever he says is written down, even though we spoke about several times about the concept that he left his halachot open-ended, he always left options to do this or that, but he is not the type of person to say one thing in writing and a different thing orally. If it was really true that he changed his mind, he would have written it and signed it. It was not that difficult to order, to ask one of the scribes around him to write an official letter and sign it. So this is questionable. But the rumor spread. Katav Birkei Yosef, Rabbi Haim Yosef David Azulai also wrote that we all say the bracha. Av de kibalnu alenu horaat maran vehu lo pasak ken. This is what the Hida. So the Hida, Rabbi Haim Yosef David Azulai, doesn't accept that tradition that he changed his mind. He said, we usually follow the rulings of Rabbi Yosef Karo, and here he didn't rule in that manner. However, I am sure, we are certain, that had he known that the Arizal rules differently, he would have followed him. But again, it's an assumption, it's not written. But what is the conclusion? There's no clear conclusion on a rule of what do you follow. Do you follow the ruling of the Zohar, or do you find do you follow the ruling of the poskim, of the halachic authorities. There are different opinions going this way, that way. The Magen Avraham, Rabbi Avraham Abeli Gombiner, was Ashkenazi from Poland, says, Halakha har Gemara v'poskim, you have to follow the halachic authorities. And he says, Hainu dafka kshen plukta ben poskim, אבל אחד דברי הפוסקים, דברי הקבלה יכריחו. He says, if there is a dispute between the halachic authorities, between the poskim, and the Kabbalah supports one of them, then that is a factor. So at the end of the day, Kabbalah was added as one more factor into the halachic process, but in many cases it had a greater authority than the other halachic sources, because when the halachic source comes from a certain rabbi, you could argue with this rabbi, says, you hold this way, I hold differently, I analyze the sugya or the discussion differently. But when you base yourself on Kabbalah, who could argue with Kabbalah? It's the word Kabbalah means tradition, it's esoteric knowledge, and then you cannot argue with that. One extreme case of relying on sort of mystical tradition is the case of, it's not related to this, but it's an interesting case by itself, when the first machine-made matzot were introduced in Europe. The inventor of the machine was an engineer from Alsace-Lorraine. His name was Israel Zinger, and he invented the machine that originally was just basically two rollers that pressed the dough. That's the only thing that the machine made. It was not a A to Z production. But when it came to Galicia, and which was then, now it's part of Poland, but it came to Eastern Europe, there were certain rabbis there who launched a campaign against the machine. Mainly it was a political campaign. It was launched by a rabbi whose reputation was tarnished before that. They said that he was in charge of a certain fund for the poor of Eretz Israel, and he took money from that fund. They also accused him of being a Zionist or heretic, maskil. So he found a good way to clear his reputation by launching a fanatic campaign against the machine. So he sent a letter to 100 rabbis in the area saying that this is terrible, the machine is an innovation that will destroy halakha, whatever. He said nobody even saw the machine, from those 100 rabbis, he got 17 letters against it. It's like a lottery, you get something, you'll get. Some of the rabbis wrote back, we don't, this is bad. And the Rebbe of Tzanz, Rabbi Haim Halberstam of Tzanz, which later became the founder of the Tzanz Kloisenberg, it's a Hasidic, very powerful Hasidic movement, one of the, we call it the courts within the Hasidic court. So he wrote, when the time came that they found that it's easier to cut square matzot than to cut round matzot, because originally when they did it, they flattened the dough by hand, just like you do with pizza or with this. It's easy to spread over a pillow or something, or cushion or something like that, and you have a round dough. But with the bigger size of dough that they made, they were able to cut square matzot. So he wrote that we have a tradition that the matzot must be round and not square, and he says there are also mystical reasons for that and for not doing matzah with a machine. Where and what is this? What is this tradition? He says we're not allowed to reveal it. So chalas, like once you say we're not allowed to divulge information, you cannot question it. So until today, the Tzanzer Hasidim and many others would not eat machine-made matzot. Why? Because of esoteric reasons that nobody knows. Interesting in comparison is Rabbi Shalom Mesas, the cousin of Rabbi Yosef Mesas, who was the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, and he wrote, people asked him about that, and he said, once in a while I get for Pesach packages of matzot from Admorim, from Hasidic rabbis, my friends, I really appreciate their gift, thank you so much. He says, if you're young, you have strong teeth and strong stomachs, tfaddalu, enjoy, eat it. I I buy the machine matzot and I enjoy them on Pesach. And
in Morocco we had round machine matzot.
Yeah, but you also had in Morocco, there was already in the 1930s they imported large quantities.
But we also had round ones.
Yeah, but the round matzot were not hard; they were soft matzah in many places. They were hard. Okay.
Maybe those who objected the machine, they were afraid they are going to make pasta and then...
No, it was not. I did research on that. It was not about, some people thought it was because of the Industrial Revolution and they were afraid of taking... No, the source was, the instigator was this guy, his name was Rabbi Dembitzer, Haim Dembitzer, who needed to have a clean bill of health. And that made him like the Gadol Ado, whatever. Now, okay, we spoke about that. So let's go back to the halachot of tefillin. Here is interesting minhag. המנהג בארץ ישראל, אם קטן יודע לשמור תפילין בטהורה, היינו שנתיים קודם מלאת לו שנת הי"ג. The minhag is that if a young child knows how to treat his tefillin with respect, and which mainly is keeping a clean body, and not running around with this. So the estimated age is about 2 years before he turns 13. At the age of 11, he could wear tefillin. Not only he could wear tefillin, hayav aviv liknot lo tefillin lechancho. As an educational measure, his father should get him tefillin and he should start putting them on. Amsterdam or London, in Amsterdam and London, they do it 6 months prior to the bar mitzvah. And in Amsterdam, they have the custom that when the kid turns bar mitzvah, they do a special limud and they invite people over for a special meal. In Egypt, the practice is that when they mechanechim lanar b'albashat tefillin, when they introduce the child into wearing tefillin, and it's not the age of 13, whenever it is. Could be 6 months earlier, a year, 2 years earlier. Whenever they do that, they bring him to the Bet Knesset, besimcha uvshirim uvnerot, dolkim. They bring him with joy and happiness and lit candles like torches. We don't do this today because of safety, but they used to do that in a parade. They bring it on. They bring the child on a Monday or a Thursday for the child to have a Sefer Torah. And on that day you don't do tahanun. It's a joyous day. That is not so simple and accepted by all. People were challenged the idea of not saying tahanun on the day of the bar mitzvah. I were in synagogue because people say, wait a second, is this his birthday? If it's not his birthday, if it's not 13 in one day, if he does it like a little earlier, we still have to say tahanun. And the answer to that is, it's not about the day it's not the day that makes him into a bar mitzvah or nullifies the tahanun. It's the joy of the family and the joy of the community of bringing him in. The interesting question is, why is it that in the Ashkenazi community this was not done? And not only it was not done, it's not that they were not used to this custom. There's almost a prohibition against it. The very strict prohibition against letting a child wear tefillin before he turns bar mitzvah, to the extent that during the Holocaust there was a book of Shalot Uchuvot, halachic questions that were asked during the Holocaust by Rabbi Haim Ovadia. He called the book Mima'amakim, from the depths. He survived the Holocaust, I think. And he wrote, the book is from the depths, to say, that in the darkest places, people still were concerned about halakha. One of the questions was, in the ghetto, he had a question from a young kid that was very ill, and he knew that, I think it was Warsaw, the Warsaw ghetto, and the kid knew that he was not going to make it to his bar mitzvah, and he wanted to know if he could put tefillin before his bar mitzvah. And the rabbi went to a very long deliberation of all the opinions, and then eventually he said, I found an opinion that you could rely on, according to the Ashkenazi tradition, to put the tefillin earlier. And he did that. So we see that for the Ashkenazi poskim, it's a prohibition to put tefillin earlier, whereas in the Sephardic custom, it's recommended and welcomed. So that's an interesting question. Where did it start? We'll talk about it B'ezrat Hashem next time.